Can I give you some advice? Think about the good parts to fear. You run faster. You're more focused. You don't feel pain as much. Every bad feeling, your palms sweating, your heart racing, they're all signs you're actually stronger. So when you feel afraid, you should think about how your body is getting ready for what's coming. Only when weak may I carry my true strength.
Welcome back to my series where I discuss scenes, characters, and themes from The Last of Us Part 2 in order to deepen our understanding of this story as well as certain facets of storytelling in general. Today I'm going to be analyzing the Rat King boss and its place in the storyline, as well as what it represents in Abby's emotional journey. This is the first time a monster like this has been seen in The Last of Us series, and it is so much more than a boss fight. This grotesque amalgamation of infected people trapped in the emergency room for 25 years also personifies Abby's trauma, foreshadows the battle to come between her and Ellie, and is a symbolic obstacle, one of many, that she will face on her internal quest for redemption and light. We see Abby wake up a total of 4 times throughout the game, and the first few times it's with a start as she wakes from a nightmare. The implication is that this playable sequence where she discovers her father's dead body in that hospital room has been plaguing her in her sleep for 4 years. This is the nightmare that she startles awake from when we first encounter her in Jackson. When we return to Abby's perspective at the stadium, Manny wakes her from the same nightmare.
How have you been sleeping these days? Not great? Do you want me to get you something from the pharmacy?
Nah, I'm good.
It's not a big deal.
No, it's fine. I'm just gonna wear myself out. I've been picking up a few extra assignments.
Abby's physique is literally the external manifestation of her trauma. Not only has she been training and working out obsessively for 4 years in order to face the monster who killed her father, but she has also been using it as a coping mechanism, pushing herself to her physical limits every day so that she is too exhausted to dream. But at this point, Joel is dead and Abby has achieved her revenge. So why is she still struggling to get a good night's sleep? Why is she still having this particular dream? Why does she keep reliving her trauma's origin, the moment her life changed forever? The answer begins to come to her at the end of that first Seattle day, after she narrowly escapes a group of hostile Seraphites and infected with the help of 2 runaway Seraphite kids. Once her mortal enemy, the 3 of them save each other multiple times during their escape. The kids even come back for her when she gets trapped in an infested building when they could have easily just fled and left her behind. Eventually, Abby needs to return to her original mission, which was to find Owen at the Seattle Aquarium, and so she leaves the kids alone in what she knows to be an unsafe area. That night, after arguing and ultimately sleeping with Owen, Abby has the nightmare again. Only this time, instead of walking into the operating room to find her father's dead body, she sees a liminal space, with elements from the hospital populating the area where she was nearly lynched and quartered by Seraphites earlier that night. And as her gaze travels up, she sees Lev and Yara hovering over the spot where, in an alternative version of this dream, she would have seen her father's corpse. It's a gruesome foretelling of the kids meeting the same fate they saved Abby from, because she left them behind. And then she wakes with a start for the 3rd time. And so, without really knowing why, Abby returns to the shipping yard to find Lev and Yara. And when it's discovered that Yara's injured arm will need to be amputated in order to prevent her from dying of gangrene, Abby volunteers to travel across the city to obtain the necessary medical supplies from the WLF-occupied Lake Hill Hospital. Through her dreams, her subconscious is trying to tell her something. And though she isn't sure exactly what yet, she knows she is determined to prevent that nightmare from becoming a reality, because she couldn't stop the original one from coming true. The trials Abby faces on her journey to get the medical supplies are many. First, she and Lev must ascend one of the tallest skyscrapers in Seattle in order to reach the sky bridges, a shortcut the Seraphites use to get around the flooding and the WLF. One of the first things we learn about Abby is that she is afraid of heights and experiences vertigo. As she and Lev climb continually upward, she gets more anxious and less prickly towards Lev, who does his best to help her through her fear, all while challenging challenging her biases and providing more context about the Seraphite prophet. When they finally reach the bridges, constructed out of a collapsed crane, Abby must face her biggest fear by crossing them.
Come on, true strength. True strength. True strength.
And then she falls, her biggest fear realized, and she survives. Shortly after, she and Lev have this conversation, which will be one of the few times Abby will actually attempt to verbally express how she's feeling.
My ears are ringing.
If that's the worst of it, we got off lucky.
Maybe it wasn't luck.
Maybe it was.
Some wolves believe in God. I've heard them pray.
Well, I don't. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die for me.
Then what are you doing here? Why did you come back for us?
Guilt.
Of what? You don't owe us anything.
I just needed to lighten the load a bit.
In addition to allowing her dreams to guide her, Abby is also motivated by a desire to assuage her own sense of guilt. Guilt for leaving the kids behind the night before, for sleeping with her friend's boyfriend, for how her actions in Jackson have affected her friends, and for killing Joel Miller while Ellie pleaded for his life. She may not yet be aware of all the specifics of her guilt, particularly surrounding Joel's death, but it has been accumulating, as suggested by her referring to it as a load she has been carrying which she feels the need to unburden herself of. In a chapter of the game literally called The Descent, Abby and Lev must descend through the infected and partially destroyed Black Array Hotel. It's suggested that the nest in the hotel consists primarily of infected patients from the hospital, the epicenter of the outbreak, who then spread out into the surrounding area. In that sense, Abby has already begun her descent to Ground Zero, and is currently on the outskirts of its radial impact, both physically in the world and metaphorically in her journey. As she descends further and further, the exposed layers and cylindrical shape of the hotel are reminiscent of Dante's 9 layers of hell. When Abby finally reaches the hospital, she comes up against another trial. Being imprisoned by her own people, Abby is arrested by the WLF for disobeying Isaac's orders and going AWOL. Now she is an outcast, an enemy of multiple factions, but still determined to achieve her goal. Perhaps at this point she believes once she's done this, she can negotiate with Isaac and get herself out of this jam. She hasn't yet fully turned her back on them, but is rather prioritizing her personal mission and subconscious needs, as well as the needs of her own tribe. Tribalism is a big theme in The Last of Us 2, and Abby's is getting progressively smaller. Even when Nora frees her, Abby doesn't tell her the full truth about what's going on.
There's a reason we haven't touched this area yet. It was ground zero for the whole city, where they brought the first infected before anyone knew better. It's gonna be overgrown to shit.
Awesome.
Abby continues to descend, alone, into the bowels of the hospital. Ground Zero is a metaphor for Abby's rock bottom. Until she set off on this mission, Abby was at her lowest point. Getting her revenge didn't give her the sense of peace and justice she'd expected to feel. Instead, she has felt more lost than ever. Her friends think she's a monster, and she has begun to suspect they may be right. The only way she can move forward is to face the past, to return to a hospital and kill the monster within her, whose violence and rage has caused her to lose touch with her humanity and capacity for empathy. It's symbolic that Abby's healing journey brings her back to a hospital, to the origin of her trauma. As she makes her way through the eerily silent emergency room, she reads notes from soldiers who didn't know what they were up against, and nurses who fought and died during the outbreak. She sees infected patients frozen in their beds, and is perhaps reminded of the horrors her father and the Fireflies had been trying to save the world from when they, too, met their end in a hospital's halls. In a rather on-the-nose, but still missable detail, she first encounters the Rat King when she wakes it from its nest in the trauma center.
The fuck is that?
While searching for a power source, Abby makes this remark.
Could use Levin here. Or Manny. Yeah, Manny. Manny would have been great.
It's interesting that her initial wish was for Lev to be there with her, and then, catching herself, she switched to wanting Manny by her side instead. While wandering in this quiet underground purgatory, this line demonstrates her already being pulled in two directions. Lev is her current companion, and he presents an opportunity. Taking care of him will, in due course, become Abby's purpose, her light. On the other hand, Manny represents her past life, both with the WLF and with the Fireflies before. He is her best friend, someone familiar, but he also enables her violence and ruthlessness. When she returns to the main reception area, the trauma center has been blown open, its contents leading a bloody trail into the parking garage. And then, just when she finally finds the supplies she's been looking for, Abby encounters one last trial, facing her biggest demon. Literally. The Rat King gets its name from a real, albeit rare, phenomenon involving multiple rats who get tangled together by the tail. It's a fitting name for this creature, composed of multiple infected people who were locked away together for 25 years. Just as the Rat King is made up of multiple physical elements to make a whole, so too is it an amalgamation of multiple metaphorical concepts. It, like Abby's pain, had festered and grown in the trauma unit for years until she finally released it. It's a grotesque reminder of the horror this infection is capable of sowing, the very infection her father had been on the verge of curing when he was killed. It's a physical manifestation of her inner demons, the thing she hates most about herself, and the untreated symptoms of her trauma, the grief, shame, and guilt she has been suppressing all this time, and which she must face in order to move on. The Rat King also represents Joel, the monster she initially held responsible for ruining her life. During the initial chase sequence, Abby hacks away at a piece of it, which later breaks away and becomes autonomous. This armored stalker, smaller, more nimble, and in a way more difficult to beat than the Rat King, represents Ellie. Severed violently from its parent, it is the final creature Abby must fight, even after what she thought was the main monster has been slain. At this point, Abby doesn't yet know that Ellie is coming for her, that they just barely miss each other at the hospital, and that her friends are dying all around her. Abby's encounter with the Rat King foreshadows the fight to come, that even when she thinks she has beat her enemy, something tougher and more formidable will present itself. Besting Ellie in a fight, for Abby, will be easy. Deciding to break the cycle of violence by sparing her won't be. By killing the Rat King, Abby has officially severed ties with the ruthless and selfish person she has become. She emerges from that hellhole, reborn, strangely calm despite having just fought a terrifying monster, her mission accomplished, and a new sense of purpose starting to set in. When Abby and Lev return to the aquarium with the medical supplies, Mel performs the surgery that saves Yara's life. That night, Abby returns to St. Mary's Hospital in her dreams, but it's different. The alarm isn't wailing, Abby isn't panicking, and the red door at the end of the hallway is open with light spilling out of it. When she enters the operating room, she sees her father standing, smiling and at peace. This vision tells Abby that she is finally on the right path. She has done something good, something her father would be proud of. She has a purpose again, one not tied to revenge or hatred, but instead to the protection of these kids whom she can keep safe and prevent from following in her footsteps.
What happened to us?
Maybe we stopped looking for the light.
Maybe.
So why was she still having the nightmare of finding her father's dead body even after she killed Joel? Because killing him didn't fix anything. It didn't bring her father back, it didn't ease her pain. And once she'd achieved her goal and received no satisfaction from it, she felt empty and purposeless. All the feelings she had before Joel died were still present, lying dormant in her psyche. Then when she met Lev and Yara and her dreams changed for the first time in 4 years, she took it as a sign and followed it. After facing hell and high water to do something good for someone else for the first time since she lost her father, Abby found a new sense of purpose and an opportunity to reinvent herself. And although what she did to save Yara can't make up for all the bad things she has done, it's an important first step on a path for change. The final iteration of her dream reveals that she has actually begun the healing process and is reconnecting with who she truly is. And when she wakes the next day, it's not with a start. For the first time in the game, she wakes peacefully and on her own terms.
Abby, why are you helping us?
Lev asked me the same thing. I guess you don't deserve this. But also, I needed to. I had to.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please interact with it as it helps me a lot and boosts the engagement of my channel. If you're new to my channel, I invite you to check out my other video essays if you want a deep dive on other elements of Abby's story. And if you're not new, thanks for coming back. Be sure to follow me on TikTok for more The Last of Us content. And until next time, endure and survive.